despite the fact that since 1925 a lot of avant-garde writers and theater directors had worked in Ukrainian cinema, they mostly used traditional aesthetics in filmmaking, avoiding the deconstruction of language and classical narrative structures. The real inventor of the avant-garde syntax in Ukrainian cinema was then lesser-known cartoonist Alexander Dovzhenko. After several not-so-noteworthy films, the last of which, The Diplomat's Porch from 1926, reflected a noticeable influence of German expressionism, Dovzhenko started filming a historical phantasmagoria, Zvenigora, 1927. Rejecting the classical narrative, he combined folk epic, revolutionary drama, and communist utopia in the one film, using innovative montage and avant-garde approach. Built on local historical and mythological material, the film offered an emancipatory concept of the philosophy of history, granting Ukrainian people a historical agency. Zvenigora was a benchmark for Ukrainian elites whose anti-colonial intentions ultimately received a relevant artistic embodiment. In his next film Arsenal, Dovzhenko paradoxically combined expressionist imagery with the asceticism of constructivism, subordinating them to the goals of Bolshevik propaganda. However, already in Earth 1930, he raised the class conflict in the Ukrainian village to the level of ancient epic and at the same time national tragedy, constructing a unique system of artistic means, which will later be called poetic cinema. As if to complement Dovzhenko's Earth, the same year Mykola Shpikovsky made a film called Bread, which highlights the theme of hunger and collectivization. By means of dynamic montage, including that of the inner space of the intertitles, he set the pace of the film that contrasts but at the same time emphasizes its epic nature. Thanks to Dovzhenko, the avant-garde experiment became the central element of film exploration by Ukrainian filmmakers. Ivan Kavaleridze, a Cubist sculptor fascinated by the artistic legitimization of Ukrainian history as much as Dovzhenko, launched a Cubist film experiment. In his film The Downpour 1927, Kavaleridze de facto denied moving images, contrasting cinema's natural dynamism with sculptural statics. The film unfolded against the background of conventional Cubist scenery, and intra-frame montage was enabled not by a change of mise-en-scène or camera movements, but by the dynamics of the light streams. In 1927, Vovko signed a contract with Dziga Vertov, a forefront Russian avant-garde filmmaker and the leader of Cine-I avant-garde theory and movement, who shot a film dedicated to the 10th anniversary of the October Revolution. The 11th year, 1928, became the first film of Vertov's Ukrainian trilogy. Vertov absolutized the filming and montage techniques elaborated in it in his next work Man with a Movie Camera in 1929, making the technique tools a subject and the essence of the filming process, ultimately emancipating cinema from theater and literature. A vivid montage, unexpected and inventive angles, multiple exposures, and even animation served as an adequate expression of the urban dynamism of big city. In the same year, Vertov's brother Mikhail Kaufman embarked on an independent experiment, filming a city symphony in spring. Kaufman, allegedly influenced by the concept of Vitaism popular among Ukrainian artists in those days, developed the humanist version of avant-garde opposite to Vertov's machine-centric approach. The heyday of Ukrainian independent cinema production coincided with Stalin's victory in the internal party battle and his seizure of absolute power in the USSR. Having dealt with the opponents, he declared 1929 to be the year of the great turning point, a radical transformation of the USSR. Stalin abandoned the concept of a world communist revolution, which the old Bolsheviks adhered to, in favor of a concept of building socialism in a single country, and announces a policy of total industrialization and collectivization of agriculture based on the self-sufficiency and rejection of Western technologies. The open market-oriented new economic policy, which revived the USSR economically, was wound down. All spheres of industry, including film production, which enjoyed commercial freedom for a short time, was handed over to a total state control. Despite the resistance of the Ukrainian political elites, who tried to preserve maximum autonomy, Stalin carried out total centralization, the purpose of which was to destroy other centers of power except Moscow. Therefore, in 1930, Vuvku was deprived of its independence, transformed into the film production organization Ukraine Film, and subordinated directly to the central government body of Soyuz Kino in Moscow. The process of centralization, nevertheless, was taking place rather slowly until 1932. Ukraine Film and the studios were managed by the former Vuvku administration. While the process of centralization and administrative unification was delayed due to noticeable resistance of local political elites, ideological control over film production was ensured quite quickly. The liquidation of the Vuvku led to the resubordination of the Ukrainian film industry from the control of the local People's Commissariat of Education to Moscow-based Soyuz Kino. The series of resolutions on cinema adopted by the Stalin-controlled Central Committee of the Communist Party directly approved the path of transformations. Back in 1929, to support Stalin's policy of forced industrialization, the Soviet government adopted a resolution on the production of agitation films, the purpose of which was to promote Stalin's policies. In 1932, their production skyrocketed to 60%. In the same year, for the same time, a centralized thematic plan was implemented. It was a list of mandatory film topics distributed among the studios. This document of centrally planned and censored film production would become the main tool of censorship for the next half-century. Agitprop films, a symbiosis of feature and documentary films with a clear propaganda message and a short production circle, almost supplanted feature films. However, due to the lack of new aesthetics, directors mostly used avant-garde artistic and montage techniques.
Товариші, ваша нафторозробка добулася величезних досягнень. Ви поставили світовий рекорд. Армія соціалістичних нафтовиків дала країні рад 26 мільйонів тонн нафти. За постановою президії Центрального виконавчого комітету Союзу Радянських Соціалістичних Республік за безмежну відданість справі будівництва соціалізму нагороджуються орденом Леніна товариші. Нафта! Нафта!
Taking cinema under ideological control coincides with the technological transition to sound film. The first Ukrainian sound film was Diga Vertov's 1930 documentary Enthusiasm, Symphony of Donbass, featuring industrial cacophony of Donetsk factories. Despite the obvious technological innovation, Vertov's film was criticized in Ukraine for Russian chauvinism, claiming that the director showed Donbass as a Russian-speaking region with no Ukrainian presence. In 1931, the first Soviet film stock factory was opened in Shostka, Ukraine, and the film equipment factories in Leningrad and Odessa resumed their work. The purchase of foreign equipment had abruptly stopped, which caused shortages and interruptions in supply. Administrative chaos caused by the reforms, mass repressions culminating in the Holodomor, lack of film stock and equipment, as well as the total ban on films that did not meet the party's ideological requirements, led to a catastrophic drop in Ukrainian film production. While Ukrainian film released about 30 titles in 1931 and 1933, only 5 were to be produced, 3 of which were shelved, and 1 was banned soon after the premiere.